Thank you. Hello, my name is Lucia, she, they, and I'm a freshman at the University of Iowa, and I stand before you as the Vice President of Queer Liberation Front. We are an organization that has been around since the 1970s at the University of Iowa, so it is quite old, and we are dedicated to talking about queer issues, queer topics, and just everything queer. But yeah, I'm here today to talk about trans joy. And when people hear the word joy, they often think of happiness, cheerfulness, excitement, something light and temporary. But joy, real joy, is something deeper. Especially in the transgender community, joy is not just a feeling. It is resilience, it is survival, and it is liberation. Although I am, thank you. Although I am not particularly religious, the Greek word for joy, chara, at least that's how I think you pronounce it, describes something profound, a celebration of deeper truths, not just fleeting emotion. And to me, that definition reflects how trans people experience joy, not as something simple, but as something hard-earned. Less than 3 years ago, I didn't even know I was transgender. In fact, I barely understood what being trans meant at all. I grew up in a very sheltered environment, one on an isolated road in Illinois. And while it is different than Iowa, I struggled with intense social anxiety, and I was surrounded by very few people. I was so disconnected from the broader world that I didn't even realize gay people existed until late middle school or high school. I assumed everyone experienced life the same way I did. But during my junior year of high school, something began to change. I entered a period of deep stress and depression, and I didn't really know why. I felt disconnected, like I was living someone else's life. As someone on the autism spectrum as well, I told myself that that must be the reason. But deep down I knew this wasn't the whole story of why I felt this way. Because something still felt off, and it felt like I was performing instead of living. So I started making small changes. I experimented with my clothes, my hair, the way I presented myself, even with those styles. Even though they were still masculine or androgynous, they felt closer to me. And something unexpected happened. I started to feel confidence. Not because of how I looked, but because I was finally expressing something real. I realized that most people weren't judging me the way I feared. They weren't watching my every move. And that realization was freeing. Then one day, I came across a term, gender identity, and for the first time, I began to understand. After hours of reading and reflecting, something clicked. The gender you are assigned at birth does not have to define who you are. So I asked myself difficult questions. Did I really want to live my life as a man? Did I want to grow into that role, to carry those expectations? And the answer was clear. No. I didn't feel like a boy. I didn't feel like a man. Even when my interests aligned with masculinity, something inside me didn't fit. I remember looking in the mirror during puberty and feeling deep discomfort at the time. A sense of misalignment that I noticed, but I couldn't explain it at the time. Something uncanny. But now I understood. For a while, I quietly used they, them pronouns, but I was still searching, and then there was a moment. I feel a little bit embarrassed saying this, but one day I tried on one of my mother's dresses, and I didn't expect anything significant, just curiosity. But when I looked in the mirror, everything changed. I'm a girl. A wave of overwhelming joy rushed through me, the kind of joy I never felt before. For the first time, I wasn't looking at a stranger, I was seeing myself. And I cried not out of sadness, but out of recognition, out of relief. Out of truth. That was the moment I found my name, Lucia, the name I was always meant to have. Coming out was not easy. When I first told my mom, her reaction was painful. But over time, she has grown, and she continues to try, and I hold on to that because I know she cares, even when it's complicated. Since then, I've embraced who I am, experimenting with expression, finding confidence, and stepping into my identity by the time I graduated high school. And through that journey, I came to understand something important about joy. Joy is not just the absence of pain. It is not just happiness. Joy is the moment you recognize yourself. It is the moment you allow yourself to exist, fully, honestly, unapologetically. And for many trans people, that moment is not given freely, it is fought for. Despite the challenges that transgender people face, especially in today's world, I still believe in something powerful. I believe in a future where every trans person can experience that same moment of joy. A future where they can look in the mirror and see themselves without fear, without shame, without hesitation. A future where joy is not rare, but ordinary. Because joy for us is not just happiness, it is truth, it is courage, it is survival, it is liberation. And this is something that every single person on this planet deserves. Thank you.